A legal battle over the future of Alligator Alcatraz. A federal judge made a big ruling last week after a look at the lawsuit fired by environmental groups. They said the detention center is hurting wildlife and damaging the Everglades. The judge ruled Alligator Alcatraz can remain operational, but with certain rules put in place. First, construction is prohibited. That includes paving, filling, excavating, fencing, and even installing lighting. Second, no more new detainees can be taken to the facility. And finally, within 60 days, the facility has to remove fencing, lighting, and waste facilities installed for the detention facility. Representative Anna Escamani telling Fox 35 she hopes this could shut down the facility altogether.
This preliminary injunction, the way that it is written, and it's 80-some pages long, it's a detailed document, but the intention of this preliminary injunction is to shut down the Everglades immigrant detention camp.
And the state does plan to appeal that decision.
We'll ultimately be successful in this. It's not going to stop our resolve. We're going to continue to do what we need to do to help the Trump administration remove illegal aliens from our country. You know, that's the mandate that they have. So we anticipated this, but I don't think it's going to be insurmountable in the end.
And let's bring in Dr. Larry Walker. He's an associate professor at UCF to weigh in on this more. Always good to see you, Dr. Walker. Good to be with you.
Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing good. So we know this halts new construction and new detainees. It's being appealed. The governor is saying he's not deterred. So what is the next step in this case?
Well, I'd expect, you heard that the state is going to appeal, but generally speaking, if you look at the decision, Judge Williams essentially used words of state and federal officials against them, including highlighting that they said this is a temporary facility. So while they're going to appeal the decision, I think it's going to be difficult. You even heard the governor say that they kind of anticipated this. So I would expect that this decision will probably be upheld because, once again, the issues is relating to environmental groups raised in terms of how it's going to impact some, animals in the area, but also many of the tribes within 3 or 4 mile radius have also part of that lawsuit and raised concerns.
And that was part of the change that we saw, the tribes getting involved. We know opponents want this stopped at any cost. They're using the environment here. Does this come down to environment? Does it come down to political issues, or is it kind of a mix between?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, in terms of, obviously the primary issue was the environment and how it impacted animals, particularly big cats in the area. And so, some of those species that we know based on information that the judge talked about and environmental groups raised is some of them are endangered species. And we know we have a very, delicate ecosystem in the state of Florida, particularly in that local area. So it looks like the environmental groups, based on Judge Williams' decision, so far have won, and we'll see what happens once again, like I said, with the appeal.
And Dr. Walker, we've seen a lot of times one judge's ruling does not make the final decision, and sometimes we have activists, sometimes we do not. So where would this go next from this judge?
Yeah, so like I said, they're going to appeal to a higher court, and then they'll, what the timeline is in terms of making the final decision. But we do know so far in terms of, Judge Williams' decision is that it essentially makes it very difficult to operate this facility. You talked about the 60-day period. Essentially, we have to move generators and other equipment, and so it makes it impossible to operate if you don't have the necessary equipment in place. But we'll see what happens with the appeal. But to be honest with you, Ryan, in these days, you never know which direction it can go. But
you don't.
I hate to make
predictions on lawsuits because you never know. Let's finish with this while we got you. We know congressional redistricting battles are happening around the U.S. In Florida, the governor saying, hey, the Census Bureau shorted us by 1 seat. A survey found there were errors. Could this change what's next in this really unprecedented lawsuit here?
It makes it very, essentially we have to have a brand new census, and having a mid-decade census is just, it's unheard of, really. But anything is possible in terms of, what the administration is looking at in terms of, appropriating congressional seats in various states. And obviously the governor has raised concerns about the last census a few years ago and believes that we should have an extra seat.
And if this happened, to be clear, if they did get this through, this would be for the midterms, would be when these new districts would be in place.
And that's why you see the urgency from not only in the state of Florida, but in other states in terms of, issues relating to, congressional seats. We do have an election coming up in a very short period of time, and it will determine who's going to have control of the House.
So many hot button issues. We could go on and on, but we can't because I'd get in trouble with the producers. Dr. Walker, good to see you this morning. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
Just some of the many issues we're following.